This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by Federal Premium Ammunition, North Dakota Tourism, OnX Hunt, and by Chief Upland. Today I'm talking with Andy Hauser, a senior wildlife biologist at Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, based out of the state of Nebraska. Andy works and hunts in a region known for its mixed bag of upland birds. That same region has a population that's currently on the rise. We'll tell you where. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Frank. I'm your host. Brandon Morton, as always, produces this program. Brandon, thank you for your hard work. Today, I am joined by Andy Hauser. Andy, what does the title Senior Wildlife Biologist for Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever mean?
Yeah, Travis. So I work in the southwest part of Nebraska as, like you said, a senior coordinating biologist.
Mm-hmm.
I essentially kind of coordinate a lot of the programs and the folks down here in the southwest part of the state. So work in joint capacity with Nebraska Game and Parks and Pheasants Forever and the USDA and really kind of keeping the pheasants and habitat on the forefront of everybody's minds down here in the southwest. So
Gotcha.
that's really kind of my role.
How long have you been with the organization?
Oh, I started in 2010, so I guess 11 years here.
Gotcha.
It's been a lot of fun, and they've been great to me.
How'd you get the job?
That's a good question. That is a great question. I started, and always had a passion for the outdoors. My family has a small farming and ranching operation down here, and wildlife and the habitat's kind of always been on my forefront. When I found out there was jobs in the wildlife field that I could work directly with farmers and ranchers and do wildlife and pheasants and quail all on the forefront, I knew that was made for me.
Yeah. When you grew up, you obviously were working with cattle and with wildlife and the land. Was there a specific point that you knew I want to do this somehow in some capacity, a career, make it a career?
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a day as about 113 and I was helping a gentleman lay pipe. and that was it. That was it, Travis. No, just my grandfather and my dad, and, they've all had a wildlife passion and definitely influenced me. We really never had the time to, truly get out and about as much as we should. But yeah, just the wildlife part has always fascinated me. And, even honestly, as a young person, I had a pretty darn good idea that's something I was interested in. So I just didn't know about all the opportunities that there really were in the wildlife field until I got into college and got exposed to a lot of those things.
This might be a question that maybe you can answer it, maybe you cannot, but I have a lot of people, viewers, listeners, they reach out and they say, I've been doing this corporate job and I just don't love it. Do you have any advice for me on, my heart is in the field, my heart is dogs and people and habitat and birds, and I just don't know what to do about that. And sometimes I don't know what to tell them either, because I don't know if there's a certain stage in life where it might be difficult to do, something that you're doing right now as a wildlife biologist. I mean, would somebody that's been in the corporate world for 15, 20 years that wants to get out, what would it be like to make that switch and get into the conservation?
Yeah, Travis, we definitely have quite a few employees actually that probably do fit that scenario. Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever has been, it's so wide an array of what we do. A lot of the on the ground biologists the kind of the get their feet dirty biologists that we have across the nation. A lot of those are pretty heavily biology based. Probably went to college for it, but we do have a lot of positions that, somebody that's been in maybe marketing or has been in, a business for a long time and it's been extremely successful. They might make a really great regional rep, working with our chapter members and working with the general public. And, obviously all of those folks can be involved at a local chapter level. Man, we love our chapter guys. They're definitely you know, our whole foundation comes down to
Right.
those volunteers. But, you know, the yeah, the there's definitely a lot of opportunity for sure.
Yeah. What is a specific, or what does a general day or a general week look like for you? Are you in the field working with landowners, working on habitat projects pretty regularly, or are you in the office working on paperwork? Because I think there's when somebody says wildlife biologist, I've heard both ways, where there's a lot of people that are out in the field hands on, and then there's a lot that say, gosh, I miss the days being out in the field.
Yeah, as a farm bill biologist, I was definitely in the field a lot more than I am now. We there's a meme that I have hanging on my desk. It has a wildlife biologist title, and on the left hand corner, there's a guy holding a bear, putting a radio telemetry collar on it. In the right side, there's a guy jumping out of a helicopter, and then kind of underneath the bottom of it, there's a guy at a desk with a pile of paperwork that says reality. But I like to think about kind of being in the middle of both those. I definitely get to be out in the field, and we're always doing wildlife surveys. We're always doing our pheasant counts, crow counts. We're always getting working with landowners one on one in the field. Specifically, more so in my old position as a farm bill biologist. Every day that's what I was doing, is working with farmers and ranchers and folks that are just plain wanting to do wildlife stuff. Now I definitely maybe get tied down a little more to administration stuff, but that's okay, and I still get out enough to really enjoy it.
Oh, that's good. I know what I think it was. It's hard to believe this already, but I want to say 5 years ago we hunted together. Does that sound about right to you?
Man, probably, Travis, probably.
Dang it. We're due for another one if you'll have me. But my gosh, I
Absolutely.
enjoyed it. You and Bruce Sprague, right?
Yes, Bruce Bragg. Yep.
Is he still working with you guys?
He is. Yep, he's still working. He actually does very similar to what I do out of the southeast part of the state. So he kind of has that southeast part of Nebraska. So yep,
Gotcha.
he's been
So
on like 16 years.
unreal, man. Good man too. Good man. When I hunted with you guys, or Bob St. Pierre with Pheasants Forever, we talk a lot, and he was telling me about. It's like you got to go to this one part of Nebraska. It's the Upland Hotbed, he called it. Can you explain where that region is and what makes it such a great place to hunt?
Yeah, we're definitely. I'm especially partial to Southwest Nebraska.
Hmm.
We have a really awesome mixed bag. We're within a couple hours of being able to shoot sharp-tailed grouse, prairie chicken, and then the pheasant and quail hunting can be extremely, extremely good, throughout the area here. So, just a lot of opportunities. We're kind of on the eastern edge of if you're a bigger game hunter, elk populations, pronghorn populations, and obviously a lot of mule deer and whitetails. So, especially for the upland guy, you can go and you might shoot, you might be able to harvest, a prairie chicken, a quail, and a pheasant all in the same field. So I've just always got a real enjoyment out of that.
Right. I think we did it. The
We
first day we
did.
hunted together. I think we might have done that. Or did we drive to a different field to get the quail? We did. We didn't hit
We
them all
did.
in the same field, but I do remember the first time we got out on the property, public land. We pulled into the parking lot. You and Bruce were like, "Yeah, I feel pretty good about this," and I'm thinking, if I'm being honest, I remember we pulled into this spot and there were spent shells on the ground and you could see the tire tracks. There was clearly a lot of people, and I'm like, oh man, these birds are going to be getting up 300-400 yards away, or what are we going to get ourselves into here? And the birds just started getting up right in front of us, and it wasn't like we were hunting early season dumb birds. It was late season, and there were pheasants to be found all over the place, and the prairie chicken actually held for us too. It was amazing, and on what you called an area that gets hunted pretty hard.
Yeah, that was a great time, Travis. That was a lot of fun, and we had a good hunt a few days in a row.
I know. So is your area a destination for bird hunters? And if not, why? Why isn't it?
I would say it is a destination for some folks that have been around. Probably 5 years, 6 years ago, we did a survey of essentially keeping track of license plates that we saw, and man, we had representation from about everywhere you could possibly think of in the U.S. And I think folks have kind of figured that out. There's not a ton out here to do besides
Right.
bird hunt. So I don't know if that plays into that or not. But if you're a upland bird hunter and willing to put some miles in, it's a pretty darn spectacular good place.
Mm-hmm. There's on the signature of your email, it says something 6 million for this state. What does that mean?
Yeah, so Nebraska alone, we've toppled over 6 million habitat acres impacted. I can't tell you what that time frame is actually, Travis.
Okay.
But that would be the 6 million acres that we've impacted in Nebraska alone. So just kind of Nebraska's habitat numbers that we've kind of worked on.
So would that be Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever's impact, or would that be this, because you work with the state and federal agencies as well?
Yeah, that would be just Pheasants Forever, Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever's impact. So our biologist, on the ground, getting things done.
You got to feel pretty proud about that.
Oh, yes. We're, we even maybe get criticized once in a while of how proud we are of our Nebraska and our Nebraska team. And man, our support in Nebraska from all of our volunteers is amazing. So it's good.
Do you have an idea of how many acres of public land are available in your state?
Who in the whole state? I would have to dig on that a little bit, Travis. Okay. I know in my area, we've just in our public access stuff, we're around 130,000 acres of public walk-in hunting. Okay. That's just through our open fields and waters program. But I'd have to dig a little bit on that. I think it's probably closer to 400,000 acres in just the open fields and waters program statewide. Okay. But we do have a little bit of federal land scattered throughout the state, and we do have some state land that Nebraska Game and Parks has scattered out. So, I don't know what that number is. But I do know just in OFW, we're bearing down on 400,000 acres pretty hard.
So the walk-in access or plots, or the name is different for each state, but the idea is pretty similar nationwide, where private landowners get compensated to open their land up to public hunting. License dollars help pay for that. But are you feeling like that program is growing still? Are you seeing it plateau? Where are we at with that?
Good question, Travis. So we rolled out our burger and pheasant plan for the state of Nebraska in 2016. And one of our really big goals of that program was to increase our public lands or our walk-in opportunities. So Nebraska's is the Open Fields and Waters program. And from 2016 to 2021, that program has grown exponentially every single year. In 2016, we were like 234,000 acres statewide. And then just last year, we were around 374,000 acres. So essentially, in the last 5 years, we've grown at 105% of walk-in areas, in the state. So definitely been really good. We've enrolled more every year. We're looking forward to this year as well. So I'll be curious to kind of figure out where we end up after this year. But yeah, every year we've continued to grow that program, and been extremely successful with it.
That's fantastic. Where do the dollars come from on that? I know some of it's licensed dollars, but is there grants as well, or where do they get compensated?
Yeah, very good question. Pittman Robertson money plays into that. That would be environmental trust plays into it. Our chapters, our local chapter volunteers at our annual banquet fundraising, all of that plays into it. Really, it's a bigger compiled group of folks all coming to the table. Nebraska Game and Parks kind of administers that program, but we're extremely involved with it,
Okay.
and that's it's a good one.
I've wondered this before, and maybe you can't answer it, but I've always wondered, when I'm on these walk-in access programs, what's a ballpark number of what these landowners are being compensated for allowing me and everybody else to be able to walk out and hunt on their land?
Ooh.
Is it per acre or per
Yeah, it's
hunter?
so it is, Travis. Yep, it's a per acre rate. Um, I don't know how much I want to dive into specific numbers of what those folks receive, but I can
Uh-huh.
tell you it's not a lot. It's truly not a ton of money. But here in Nebraska, one of the more probably reasons that they do take it is they're covered under the Recreational Liability Act.
Mm-hmm.
So something was to happen to a hunter that was hunting out there, they're pretty well covered by that Recreational Liability Act, and people really, really like the fact that they don't have to worry about that if something does happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what a value is to that, but I do know that's a really significant thing that a lot of our enrollees think about. But I would say we have, depending on what the habitat is, we might have things that are 50 cents an acre, all the way up to $25 an acre. And it really depends on what the opportunities kind of go with that are. Some of our um, enrollments on streams and rivers, and they might have fishing tied to it. And it might be really, there might be really good turkey
Mm-hmm.
or deer opportunities. Some of that definitely is higher than some of our. Maybe we enroll 6 sections of sand hills rangeland that might be grouse and grouse and deer opportunities.
Mm.
So it really varies a lot. But those rates kind of vary a fair amount. But they're definitely helping the folks out. Hopefully,
Yeah,
maybe it
yeah,
helps them pay their taxes for the year.
right. I any guess to, let's say, just the average, let's say it's a section. Any guess as to how many hunters will walk on a particular property in a hunting season?
Oh man,
I know I'm
Travis,
hitting you with some
that's a
a
hard one for
lot of
me.
tough questions here, but I'm just
That
curious.
that is a great question. I know probably 5 or 6 years ago, we did a survey in the Southwest. Um, it was only here and mostly primarily on pheasant type uh, fields you would think of, CRP fields,
Yep.
some in the real core area. And some of those sites were getting 20 to 30 people a day going through them. Uh,
Wow.
yes, since then, that actually gave us a really good opportunity to say, hey, people are coming here, they're utilizing these, and we need to have more.
Hmm.
And since then, that's that definitely played into the amount of acres that we do have enrolled now. So I can't tell you those exact numbers, but it was a lot, of people early on. Some of the bigger sites, and some of the sites that might be, a long ways away from something else, they tend to get visited little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody hates to drive an hour away to find a site that's, very poor quality.
Mm-hmm.
But I might drive an hour to hit a site that might not have anybody on it also. So
Right. Well, you don't hunt the same place twice in a year, do you?
not very much, unless it's
Dang.
good. Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I, I enjoy covering a lot of ground, and I don't know, the camaraderie and the road trip's half of it. So
Yeah. I remember, okay, we're walking. It was one evening. We were walking on this big section, or not, it wasn't a section. It was maybe a half a section or something. And we were talking about this, or you were explaining, I think it was you, maybe it was Bruce, but you were telling me about this study that a university did about how the wild birds on public land interact with hunters. And I believe you said that there were not collars, but transmitters put on the birds that could track where they were. And then hunters could volunteer to take one as well. And they could see what the birds would do, where they would go when the hunters would walk in the field. Am I dreaming this up, or did you tell me this?
yeah, yep, that was one of the research projects we did probably 7 to 8 years ago here in the Southwest. And
Okay, where do the birds? This is what everybody wants to know, because I think I've retold this a few times, and I want to make sure I'm telling it correctly. So, what do birds do? What's typical of what the hunter does when they walk onto a property, and where do the birds go?
that was truly fascinating on that study. Um, it was really really fun to see what folks do.
Yeah.
You definitely have some dog followers. That really there was no rhyme or reason of where they went besides where their dog went. And then you had a fair amount of people that pretty well stuck to the outside edge
Hmm.
of the entire field, especially in bigger fields. Um, and that's what we saw. So, we saw a lot of those birds be in the middle of those fields and maybe move a little bit, but maybe not move at all. Um, so, that's definitely something that research project said was just don't hunt the outside of a field all the time.
Right. Well, especially on public land too. I mean, I've told that to so many people. Guys, I know this edge looks good, and I know that they'll be out of here eating corn, tonight, but they have been hunted for weeks now, and they know the drill. When you walk the perimeter of this thing, they just run right to the center of it and wait for you to leave, and then they go about their regular day again. I'm like, you got to mix it up. You got to come at them from a different angle. So we walked the edge, and Bruce was on the edge, and I was in the middle between you. And you and I were like, well, then why are we on the edge, Andy? And we walked right to the center of that thing, and the dog went on point like maybe 2 minutes into our different game plan, and we flushed quail, we flushed pheasants, and it's just a good reminder that wild birds can pattern hunters very easily when you do the exact same thing over and over. One thing I did experience when we hunted together for the first time was a wheat stubble program. Are you guys still doing that? And from your perspective, well, first of all, can you tell us what is the wheat stubble program? And then do you think it's been a success?
Yeah, great question. So our wheat stubble program is essentially we're always encouraging our producers to try to cut their wheat as tall as they can. We used to have a financial incentive to try to get them to cut it over at least 15 inches tall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we that was on a grant, and we went away from that because a lot of our guys were really doing a good job with it. Um, we still incentivize our wheat program through our open fields and waters program. So
Okay.
essentially, we're looking at those wheat fields, um, really targeting ones that are tall. So basically, anything that's above 15, 16 inches in height, we are enrolling those into public walk-in hunting. It was I suppose it really wasn't a secret, man. We encouraged them to think about hunting those things for a long time. So once they got their wheat harvested, we'll pay them a little bit of money to let us enroll that into public walk-in hunting, and it can be dynamite. I've harvested prairie chickens in it, pheasants, quail. I'm a wheat lover, so we're excited for this year. Wheat harvest is rolling along pretty good just right now. Yield reports are really, really good. So, in previous years, good yields typically result in pretty tall, more robust stubble, and more sites in our open fields and waters program. So, that's somewhere that a lot of our hunters early on, and also in that study, didn't really take advantage of. I think the secret's out a little bit now. Folks are trying to hunt those, and they are big. A lot of them are really big, and I think people get, I don't know, maybe intimidated is maybe the word, that they're really big and they all look the same. So, but they sure can be good.
Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, sometimes when let's say you go to South Dakota or North Dakota and you get these big rolling grassland or CRP fields, and they're just so massive. When you look at a wheat field, you might be looking at a 640 acre section, and you say, "My goodness, they can be anywhere," and they really can be anywhere when you've got that kind of cover. Because essentially, when that wheat is that tall, I mean, it's just like a grass field for the most part, and they can run like heck in those fields.
Yes, they can.
From my experience hunting them, and with you as well. Why do you think more states don't do that, though? Because I don't know of other states that offer the wheat stubble program.
Man, Travis, that's a great question. I honestly don't know that. I don't know. We've had such, good luck with it. That, man, I can't imagine us not ever having it. As far as other states, I'm not sure on that one, but I sure feel like if I could get on wheat sites, if I was in Kansas or wherever that was next to good production, good nesting cover of some kind and good brood cover next of some kind, early season, that's where I will be.
Yeah. So. What do you have an estimate on how many landowners, farmers, ranchers do no-till? I mean, if you had to guess, I feel like in your area versus the further north you travel, the more tilling it seems that I see when I'm on the road. But your state in particular, there's a lot of no-till.
Yeah, I would bet that we're close to 70%, probably, maybe 50 to 70%. Of guys, it definitely could be higher than that. The farther you go northwest, a little more tillage you see. But yeah, I would say in general, most of the folks do that.
And can you explain why they would choose to till versus letting it sit?
Yeah, so some of the till folks, they might already have a disc, they might already have diesel fuel, they might have a tractor, and it all kind of comes down to that control of weeds and whatever else you might think of their site prep for their crops. They have those things. It's probably there's probably opportunities that it's cheaper. And some of the no-till guys, they look at it as they, it's really, really good for their soil, and it's really good for site prep, and they have the residue on there. Their crops they might do better. So it's just kind of two different looks at it. As we've progressed, I think a lot of the guys have really seen those benefits of the no-till programs and no-till practice. Yep. And as we keep moving, I assume even more folks will pick that up.
It'll just keep traveling north.
Yep, I would assume so. I can't tell you, besides that, Travis.
Yeah, no, that's completely okay. So I want to get into specific habitat questions and bird numbers based on what you're seeing now. But first, I have a quick message from our presenting sponsors. For generations, bird hunters have hit the fields carrying some form of a vest or game pouch on their backs. Sometimes the vests rip, tear, and fall apart. Other times, they're downright uncomfortable. That's why Chief Upland designed a vest that's durable, comfortable, and fits your needs. Their new Upland vest is fully customizable to fit the size and shape of all hunters. Plus, you can decide where you want to attach your shell pouches and accessories. Last fall, I tested a Chief Upland vest for the first time, and I love it. Birds can be front loaded into the game pouch, and they fit nicely in the back without sagging. That's a big deal because the weight disbursement on your back and shoulders won't tire you out even with a full pouch of birds. The vest itself is extremely lightweight, weighing only 2.56 pounds. The material is built out of Cordura fabric, which is the same waterproof fabric used in tactical military gear. You can confidently hunt with the Chief Upland vest in some of the world's toughest environments. I can say that my Chief Upland vest is one of the nicest hunting vests that I've ever worn. Push further and hunt longer with the game-changing vest from Chief Upland, built for your pursuit. If you're looking for a great bird hunting destination this season, then I strongly recommend that you consider one of my favorite places to hunt. That's North Dakota. North Dakota is a bird hunter's paradise. You can hunt both waterfowl and upland birds all in the same day. Ducks in the morning, pheasants, sharp-tailed grouse, and Hungarian partridge in the afternoon, or vice versa. North Dakota has a population estimate of 2.9 million breeding ducks, which is 19% above the long-term average. And the prairie pothole region is smack dab in the middle of the central flyway. Last season, pheasants, sharp-tailed grouse, and Hungarian partridge numbers rose in North Dakota, and there are reports coming out that some areas of the state have numbers this year that are even higher. I've been talking about the bird numbers in North Dakota for months now, and there's a chance that this season could be one of the best we've seen in decades. North Dakota has approximately 800,000 acres of private land open to walk-in hunting. For the latest plots guide, visit the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Bag your limit this fall in North Dakota. Visit legendarynd.com to start planning your hunting adventure today. All right, Andy, let's get back to Nebraska here for a little bit. If someone is going to plan a hunt in Nebraska this fall, where would you tell them to go?
So, Travis, our core pheasant quail areas really kind of come down to the Southwest and the Panhandle. Overall, those are kind of our two strong points here in Nebraska for pheasants. Mm-hmm. Quail wise, anything of the southern part of the state can be really, really good. And there's pockets of pheasants and quail all over the state that are really, really good. But primarily, a lot of the folks come to the Southwest or the Panhandle.
Gotcha. So I have this page saved on my computer, and I'm looking at it right now. www.drought.gov, and it gives current conditions across the country for drought. And one area that has nothing on it is Southwest Nebraska. You guys have somehow managed to, are you receiving normal moisture, above average? Where are you at?
We started off the year really, really good. The spring was pretty darn good for us, which, actually got us some really, really good habitat. Our habitat overall much better this year so far, in that area. There's definitely patches in the Southwest and the Panhandle that are really dry. Our monitor hasn't really shown some of the scattered spots that haven't actually hit any rainfall. Okay. You might go 35 or 40 miles and see extreme drought conditions. And then another 40 miles and everything's green and looks great. So we do have a little bit of that scattered, a little bit of scattered drought, but overall we've been really lucky here. coming in. So we did have about 10 days of extremely high temperatures.
Okay.
But and that was kind of right in the beginning of June.
Ooh.
We had anywhere from 100 to 107 degree weather. But I'm optimistic that that habitat was, good, and newly hatched chicks really should have been able to find shade and insects. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little more optimistic on that, because our habitat does look really good. So
Do you know in your area, I assume kind of that first week of June tends to be peak hatch across the Midwest area. Is that the case down there for you too?
yep, we fall right into that first week of June is right at it for us too.
Okay.
And that's pretty 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 oh standard across the Midwest, but yeah, that hits us every year about right.
Okay.
So
Let's say an area you're talking how spotty it's been. Let's say an area is just extreme drought and there's not great habitat, insects aren't there. Do you know how far a pheasant will travel to find the right cover? I mean, will they go 5 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles? Is there any research that has that information?
yeah, that's a good question. We don't see tremendously big movements. Mile and a half is kind of when I start to think about guys managing, you know, birds and properties that all want to kind of do something together, as
Mm-hmm.
far as like a habitat community of landowners. That mile and a half is probably more so what I would think about as average. I wouldn't be surprised to see some birds go farther than that, but
Mm-hmm.
realistically, it's a pretty darn small home range.
Okay. Can you explain the importance of the insects in the life of pheasants, quail, grouse?
Oh, absolutely. Insects are key. That's the number one thing. If anybody can, grasp that in their habitat mind, is we have to have soft bodied insects for that first 6 weeks of that pheasant or quail's lifespan. Those little tiny insects that they can get, right there kind of where they're nesting without moving a long ways. They're not very big and not very mobile right
Mm-hmm.
after they hatch, but they're really not, you know, eating grass seeds or corn grain or all the things that you think that they might be eating in the winter. They are plain eating those soft bodied insects. Little protein packs is what I kind of like to call them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have good habitat, good broadleaf plants, different flowering species, different forbs and legumes out there, kind of all next to where they're nesting. That's really what we're looking for. And those flowering plants, those broadleaf plants, they're really what's producing a lot of those insects for us. So when we're designing our habitat projects, we're always trying to find, figure out ways that we can get good brood cover. So not only those insects, but also bare ground. That's something that folks don't think about is the bare ground that we really need to have those pheasant chicks and quail chicks have. They can't climb over 5 foot tall big blue stem that has a leaf litter or dead material, a thick 5 inches thick on the ground where they are. We need those species, but we also need that bare ground to where they can really move around.
Which bird are you most concerned about? Pheasant, quail, or prairie chicken making it through the summer stress?
Ooh, that's a good one, Travis. That's a great question.
Hey,
Um,
thanks.
I'm gonna go with pheasants on this one.
Yeah.
Our prairie chickens are very, probably more so better at handling a lot of those drought conditions.
Mm-hmm.
They're they're kind of used to it.
Mm-hmm.
They live in pretty tough country. Um, our quail, they're much more prolific egg layers. Larger clutch size. They have multiple re-nesting attempts. They have a long breeding season. Um, I worry, a little bit more about pheasants than I do quail, and prairie chickens. Now, somebody could argue on that. If you put 5 biologists in the same room, Travis, I'm not sure you get that same answer.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I'm going with, and right or wrong.
Yeah, it's funny because a pheasant can withstand so much in a harsh winter. I mean, I've seen them in 40 below temperatures and the snow that's 5 feet deep, and they're out there plucking seeds off of the top of a sunflower head, and northwest North Dakota, and then they just don't get enough moisture in the summer, and then boom, they're done.
Yep.
It's just they're so tough, but at the same time, they need these birds need so much. We're always talking. We're so close. We're right there, but this or hail comes through, or just like, oh man, can you guys just toughen up a little bit for us, please? Would you
Absolutely.
Would you say though that your populations this year are going to be higher than last year? I mean, based on what you're seeing in the habitat.
Yeah, Travis, I would say if I was to guess, we're gonna be right at it or a little higher. We did have a tough winter, honestly.
Really?
Our crow counts were coming. Yeah, we really did. We had, a good 3-week period where it was -10 to -30 degrees in February.
Mm-hmm.
That also had another 6 inches of snow on top of it. Pretty well statewide. And, I think that was a little hard on some things.
Okay.
But, last year, we hit a little bit of wet weather, early nesting, and that played into it. So I'm optimistic we'll see, we'll see some bird numbers here, for sure.
Okay. At what point will you feel confident that your numbers are going to be better than last year? I mean, your gut says you're feeling like they're going to be a little bit better, but what point will there be any data that backs that up?
Good question. So we'll really get into our roadside surveys here in August.
Okay.
We'll get a really good idea then. Our Bob White quail whistle count survey data is
Mm-hmm.
just not quite published yet. Talking to a few of the biologists around, some of their routes were a little lower than they have been, but mine was higher. So, we'll get a real good idea in the next few weeks to a month. We do our spring crow counts, which really only tells us what we have for breeding males available. So,
Okay.
It's an indicator, but really it's probably kind of just an indicator.
Right.
It tells us what we had for winter survival, summer survival and chick survivals, really what's going to be for what we have for birds.
Well, exactly too. And if you've got the right conditions and the right habitat and you got a clutch of 11 or 12 chicks that come out versus 3 to 5, I mean, that's a big difference in your population. So I always, I don't live and die by those spring counts by any means.
No, no. I've heard some good things from some of our farmers and ranchers that I've been working with. A couple gentlemen have said they always send me images. I always get messages and calls and said, Andy, because I always like to hear from them too.
Yeah.
I've heard guys tell me they've seen 11, 12 chicks go across the road in front of them just a couple weeks ago that were, smaller birds, so a little bit later hatch. And if we're still having 11 to 12 chicks on a later hatch, that's spectacular. Right. So that gives me a little hope for sure. And that's why I'm optimistic anyway. But, we'll see how widespread it is.
Yeah, you're in that Southwest region. I know we keep talking about it, but I mean, there's a reason it gets a nickname, the Hotbed, the Nebraska Upland Hotbed. Just the variety, and then you just have a lot going for you, and it's promising. Are your quail numbers historically where are you at there with quail numbers across the state and across your region?
Across the state, we've been pretty darn good. We've been good. For quite a few years. We definitely have some of those highs, 2013, 14. We had really, really, really good quail numbers, moving 10 or more coveys a day. In in last year, it was pretty patchy across the state. Southeast was pretty steady and good. The South Central area was pretty decent. All of Southwest was pretty good, really, too. So, if you were a quail hunter, I really enjoy quail hunting. We were still moving 5. If we were really focusing on good cover last year, we were still moving, 5-6 coveys a day, and we hunted some stuff for, on a quarter of land with even just pivot corners. We moved like 4 different coveys of quail. So, and they were good coveys. So, widespread across the state, we were good. And if you got in the right spot, it was still really good.
Man. Well, what does your gut say this hunting season is going to be? I mean, there's a lot of factors that come into play that can still change between now and hunting season, but overall, where do you stand? You happy?
Overall, I'm happy. I put it to one component. Our habitat looks great. That the weather always plays into it. That's the one, we can't control that one, but our habitat really does look good. We're hearing some guys say that they're not seeing birds, but we have so much cover in areas that I wouldn't expect to see any birds. No reason for them to be out and about when they don't have to go anywhere. Yeah. So, I'm an optimistic person when it comes to it. But I'm thinking we'll be okay.
If somebody wants to come hunt in Nebraska, it's never done it before, and I know there's somebody listening right now, maybe several people, rather than sending me an email saying, where did you hunt when you were with Andy? Can you give them some advice on, some resources that could help their planning, some areas that they could look into, or pockets that have more public land available in a close proximity? Anything that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, the Nebraska Game and Parks website does a really, really good job of showing areas kind of where our grouse are located, where our sharptail are located, where our prairie chickens are, prime areas that I would think about pheasant hunting and quail hunting. They publish a really good report coming out here later on of regional information of what those roadside surveys come out like. That's a really good. If I was to do my homework, and I do the same, I utilize those as well. I would be looking at those, and then the Nebraska Game and Parks also has the public access atlas. So that's going to be published. It's also online. You can find hard copies around, but that's going to be, the walk-in hunting opportunities that we have. So I'd definitely be getting my hands on those and, kind of zooming in on some areas.
And then, of course, the Onyx app will really help you dial in those properties and know where you stand on them, and mark a few of those little coveys of birds and places you maybe want to come back to again another day. Andy, I appreciate you taking the time to give us an update from your neck of the woods. I'm glad to hear that habitat's looking good, and we all know what happens when the habitat looks good. So it hopefully it will be a banner season for you, and I hope to get back down there and walk a field with you again someday.
Absolutely, Travis. Anytime.
Awesome. Once again, thank you to our sponsors, Federal Premium Ammunition, Onyx Hunt, North Dakota Tourism, and Chief Upland for helping us to make this show possible. If you need a bird hunting fix while you wait for hunting season to get here, we have brand new episodes of the Flush television show airing right now on the Outdoor Channel every week from now until the end of December. You can watch a new episode from this season, our old episodes, including the hunt that I got to go on with Andy down in Nebraska's Upland Hotbed. That one is available on our website at theflush.tv. You can find that episode in its entirety and episodes from the last several seasons in their entirety on our YouTube channel. Just search for The Flush. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Frank, reminding you to take the time to introduce someone new to the field.